Dempster. I'm a writer. I'm the author of Neon Pilgrim, which is a book about my experiences hiking 1,200 kilometres on my own on an ancient Buddhist pilgrimage route in Japan called the 88 Temple Pilgrimage, or the Henro-Michi. When I was 15, I was an exchange student and I spent a year living in Japan, going to school and living with Japanese families. And I lived in Kochi, which is a big town on the island of Shikoku, which is the largest of the the smallest of the 4 main islands in Japan. And Kochi is actually a town that the pilgrimage travels through. So when I was 15, I would see pilgrims out on the pilgrimage route, and they're quite identifiable because they wear all white and carry a walking stick and obviously have their backpack with them. And when I was 15, I was really excited by this idea of doing a pilgrimage because, you know, I kind of saw myself as an adventurer and a traveller and someone who would really get out and explore the world. But then what happened was, you know, I went back to Australia, I went back to high school and went to university, and life got in the way, and I did lots of travel, but I never actually went back to do the pilgrimage. But then when I was in my late 20s and I was in a really bad place in my life, and I was at a library in Bendigo of all places, actually in Kangaroo Flat, and I found a book about the pilgrimage called Japanese Pilgrimage. It's kind of, you know, the book about the Henro-Michi, and I was reading it, and it had a passage in it about a woman who was suicidal, and her husband decided that to sort of save her, they would go and walk the Henro-Michi, and the physical element and the spiritual element would fix her, and it did fix her. And I was really inflamed by this idea that instead of kind of staying put and facing the things in my life, that I could run away basically and throw myself at the mercy of the pilgrimage. So I did. One of the reasons why I wanted to write travel books, and in particular a travel story that was adventurous, is because I always wanted to travel. I grew up in rural Victoria and had this kind of idea of getting older and I'd go and escape and explore the world. And as a reader and someone who wrote diaries the whole time, I read a lot of travel books, and they were all written by men pretty much. And as I got a bit older, I started reading more widely in the genre, and most of the travel books that are published that are by women are kind of not adventurous. So they might be about going to live with your family for a year, or going to Paris to find love, or going to India because your husband got a job there. And there was very little in the genre that was really about women, and particularly young women, going out and doing very adventurous things. So that's something I always wanted to do, because I kind of had the feeling there'll be loads of girls out there who, like me, grew up with no great kind of traveling role models. And it kind of took me until my late 20s to get it in my head that I could actually go and do those things. You know, I'd been backpacking around Europe, and I'd done an exchange, and I'd lived in London and all that kind of stuff, but I'd never actually gone out and really gotten out of my comfort zone and done something insane, basically, and had a real proper adventure. And I think a large part of that is because I didn't have any sort of literary role models as I was growing up. When I went to do the pilgrimage, I had no money, I was dirt broke, so I did something that the Japanese call nojuku, which means camping out or sleeping out. It basically means not paying for accommodation, so kind of throwing yourself at the mercy of the road and sleeping wherever you can. So as a result, I slept in some pretty unusual places as I hiked around, including at temples, in hiking huts in the mountains, but also quite often in parks, at the beach. One time I slept at a farmer's market on the table that they use for their fruit and veggie sales. I'm also a long distance touring cyclist, and always have been, but since I got back from Japan I've been riding longer and longer distances, including earlier this year I went to the Nullarbor and rode across the Nullarbor, and that was amazing because I feel like now that I've done something that was so physically and emotionally and spiritually hard that I did in Japan, it really made doing something like riding across the Nullarbor much easier, because the obstacles were much easier to overcome because I knew that I could overcome them because I had in the past. So I kind of feel like I'm carrying the pilgrimage with me a little bit, no matter where I go.
Daylight goes of